Here we go. So Dr. Sattler has to get to the little shed, and Muldoon sees something. She can't see what he's looking at, but he's looking right into the bushes. And he says, "There, straight ahead." She says, "We can make it if we run." And he says, "No, we can't." And he's waiting. He says, "Now, go." And she bolts to the shed, and she gets inside and slams the door. Oh, she's safe. And she goes down the steps and everything. She's got a walkie-talkie, and she's talking to Hammond. He has a map of the place where you have to go to turn the power on. So she follows the directions and goes down to the big thing. She pumps the thing to make it turn on. And it lights up. All the lights come on. And there at the fence where Grant and the kids are climbing, a little alarm bell starts to go off. It goes, bam, bam, bam. And that means danger. So they're climbing down the other side, and they hurry to get down. But Tim, he's smaller, and so he's kind of slow. He's up at the top. He's crossing over. They get down, and they say, "Come on, Tim, get down, get down. You got to get off the fence now. Come on, come on." And right at the same time, Dr. Sattler is there, and she's got a whole row of switches like this to turn on. And she starts to turn them on. You have to flip open the thing and then flip the switch and then push the button and flip open the things, flip the switch, push the button, flip open the thing, flip the switch, push the button, flip open the thing. And she's doing that. And down at the bottom is the fence that they are on. And she's getting closer and closer, and they're saying, Tim, come on, jump into my arms." He's like, "I'm not going to jump. Are you crazy?" And Dr. Grant is right there to catch him. He says, "Come on, jump into my arms, quick. You can't climb down fast enough." And she's hitting buttons, flip, hit, flip, switch, flip, hit, flip, switch, flip, hit. And she's coming. And I'll count. 1, 2, and then flip, and Tim gets blown off the fence, and he lands on the ground, and he's knocked out. And they jump over to him, and Dr. Grant says, "No, Tim, come on, Tim." And right in the middle of that, Dr. Sattler, who's just there, she turned on everything. She's on the walkie-talkie, and she says, "Mr. Hammond, I think we're back in business." And then, and a Velociraptor right behind her. There's a fence, but the Velociraptor is right there and scares her, and she jumps, and she runs to get out of the shed because there's a Velociraptor down there in there. Ah! She's running to get out. And Muldoon, who's outside, he's there, and he's hunting that raptor. And he's getting ready to shoot it. And then right as he's about to shoot it, because remember, Velociraptors hunt in packs like wolves, and they hunt back. If you're hunting Velociraptors, they know you're behind them, and there's never just one. And in this case, there are two. And the other one has snuck around the side very quietly and is right next to him. So when he's ready to shoot the one raptor, through the bushes comes the other raptor and goes, and eats him. Ah! So there are two outside, and there is one raptor inside the shed, but she locked it in there. She closed the door, and she's running back to the main building. Grant, he's still trying to help Tim and wake up Tim. He's saying, "Come on, Tim. Come on, Tim." And then Tim starts to cough. And he opens his eyes and he says, 3. Because he was counting when he was on the fence. And they can't believe Tim's okay. And they hug him. Both Lexi and Grant hug Tim. And they get him up. His hair is all stuck up because he got electrocuted. And they run. And then they get back to the main building. And there's Dr. Sattler. And she holds on to him. And they hug each other because they all found each other again. Dr. Sattler, Dr. Grant, and Lexi and Tim. And they go inside the building. And they have to go and get downstairs into the cellar where Hammond is. And so they leave the kids in the room with all the ice cream. There's Jell-O and all kinds of food. Lexi, and she's smiling because she's so hungry. She's eating and eating. And Tim, he's about to eat his Jell-O. And the Jell-O starts to jiggle. And he's shaking. And Lexi sees that he's not eating. He's afraid. He's scared. And he's shaking. And she turns because behind Tim is the shadow of a Velociraptor. raptor coming into the room, and she grabs him, and they run. And they run into the kitchen, and they close the door behind them. The big kitchen where they make all the food that you saw on the tour. They go in there, and Dr. Grant and Dr. Sattler go in, and they find Hammond, and they say, okay, we've got the power back on. Let's call the boat to come and get us off of this island, this terrible island with dinosaurs. The kids are back over there. And Hammond says, how many raptors are there? And she says 3. And he says, how many are outside? She says, just 2. There's only 2 that we have to worry about unless they figure out how to open doors. And at the kitchen where the kids are hiding, the door handle, it's one of those that you push on, it starts to turn. It goes, and it opens. And there's a raptor pushing on the handle with its claws. And it noses open the door. It goes, and gets the door open and comes in and smells. And it smells the kids. And it puts its nose up in the air and goes, oh, 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 because they bark like that. And then the other raptor comes, and they both stand in the doorway together, and they're looking around. They do like this. They go, because they're hungry, and there's kids in here, and all they've had to eat today is Mr. Muldoon and his gun, and the gun didn't taste very good. And so they're looking around, and there's kids in this kitchen. And they start to come in, and the kids, they're hiding at the end. They're under a counter, but the dinosaurs are coming. The raptors are coming around the corner, and so they run, and they crawl as quietly as they can, and they're crawling across, and here come the raptors the other way. And they can smell, there's kids in here. So Tim is right there at the end, among some spoons, and he holds onto the spoons that are hanging so that they don't clank around. And the raptor smells him and hears him and starts to come towards him. And right as he's coming towards him, Lexi, who's on the other end, she has a ladle and she starts pounding it on the floor. Clink, 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 clink. And the raptor looks up from where Tim is and starts to go the other way. She jumps into a little cupboard and starts trying to close the little door on it, and she can't pull it down. It's jammed. It won't go, and she's getting scared because here comes the raptor. It sees her at the end, and it goes and starts coming, racing towards her, and then clunk, and bangs its head on the reflection of Lexi that it was looking at, because it's all metal everywhere, and the reflection of Lexi, who was actually right over here. So it hits its head and it's almost knocked out because they can run really, really fast. So it ran full speed into a metal desk, and it's out. But the other one is standing there and looking. Tim is on the other end, and the raptor sees Tim. It goes up and over the top and comes towards him with these big claws, and it grips the edge of the counter and leaps off, and Tim jumps into the freezer. There's a big walk-in freezer with a door. He jumps in there, and he slips on the ice. He's running in place like a little dog on a hardwood floor, and he's, and he jumps, and the raptor goes in after him and flies over the top of him and slams its head into all the food in there, and he runs to the door and gets on the outside and closes it just in time, but then it's got its head through the door and it's got its claws, it's coming around the side, and right as it does, Lexi comes running up, with her hands out like this, and she slams on the door and goes, Gah! And the raptor gets hit in the side of the head and goes, and pulls its head back, and then they close the door and they latch it and they put the little thing through the hole so it can't get out of there. It's gonna freeze solid. Compass abnormality. Yes, I know. So they jump up and they run out the door of the kitchen. And right as they're running out the door of the kitchen, the raptor that banged its head on the big desk thing gets up and looks at them and does a little snarl, a little. Grant and Dr. Sattler, they've got to get to the control room where they can turn on the door locks. And they get inside, but right as they do, there's a raptor trying to get in the door behind them. So Dr. Grant has to throw himself against it to hold it closed. And then he needs Dr. Sattler to help too. She's pushing against the door, and the raptor's trying to get in. And Lexi sees the computers. And remember what I said about Lexi? Lexi loves computers. She knows a lot about computers. She goes up and she sees all the stuff on the screen and she says, I know this. It's a Unix system. She starts going through and she finds where they turn the power back on and the door locks and everything. She gets it and it loads and it turns on everything. And they're holding the door and they get the door closed and the lock goes. And now the Raptor can't get in. And then where Hammond is, he gets a phone call. And the phones weren't working. But the phone, he picks it up and it's Dr. Grant. And he says, Hammond, the phones are working. He's about to ask how the children are doing, and then all he hears is, it's coming through the glass! Because Grant had a gun. They're climbing up a ladder into the ceiling, above the tiles of the ceiling, because there's a raptor down underneath that broke through the glass, and it's in the control room now. And it wants to eat them. It's hunting them. And then it jumps in behind them and they're climbing through the rafters and they get to the end and it opens up into that big area where the Tyrannosaurus Rex skeleton was. That big room with the museum kind of posing of Tyrannosaurus Rex about to eat some Brontosaurus skeleton. The two skeletons are posed like this. They jump off of the ceiling rafter thing where they are. They jump down onto the bones of the dinosaurs, but the bones are hanging up in the air on cables and they aren't really held together and they start to break apart. And they hold on to what they can. And they're swinging around and there's a raptor right there where they were going. Then the bones start to fall and everybody holds on and they fall on the ground and the bones come flying down at them and they cover their heads and they don't get hit by the bones, but they almost do. And then right there, Grant gets up and there's another raptor on the ground right there and it goes, and the raptor that was up there that jumped onto the bones, it jumps down and now there's a raptor here and there's a raptor here and there's Dr. Grant and Dr. Sattler and Lexi and Timmy right in the middle and they do their and they're ready to charge, ready to jump on them and eat the people. And it's going to be so yummy to eat these people. And they go, open their mouth wide. And right as he's about to jump, the Tyrannosaurus Rex leaps in and closes his mouth around the raptor that's about to jump and goes and starts to eat the raptor. The other raptor, he jumps and runs and jumps on the side of the Tyrannosaurus Rex and starts trying to claw at the Rex. But the Tyrannosaurus Rex is huge and he throws down the dead one that he just bit and it bounces like a dead fish. And he reaches around with his head because he's got little tiny arms, nothing he can grab with him. And he's roaring. And he gets his head around and he bites down on the raptor's tail that's whipping around, grabs the tail and throws the raptor across the room into the Tyrannosaurus Rex skeleton. And Dr. Grant and Dr. Sattler and Timmy and Lexi, they're looking up at this and go, we got to get out of here right now. And they run out the doors. They jump in the Jeep outside that Hammond just pulls up in. Dr. Grant says, Hammond, I've decided not to endorse your park. And Hammond says, so have I. And the Tyrannosaurus looks up and makes a big roar because it just killed the two raptors. Back to the helipad where the helicopter has landed and they're getting into the helicopter and all they hear out about there is just roars of dinosaurs. And Hammond, he takes one last look at his park because he loved his park, but his park was a bad idea. And they help him into the helicopter and they all climb in. And the way they're sitting on the helicopter this time, Hammond and Dr. Sattler are sitting on the one side, and Dr. Sattler has a smile on her face because of what she's looking at. She's looking across the helicopter at the other bench seat. And there is Dr. Grant with his arms around the two children, Timmy and Lex, and Timmy and Lex are asleep because they're so tired. And Dr. Grant is there, and he's got his arms around the two kids because he cares about them. He loves these kids, and he protected them, and he feels good that he kept them safe all the way through that whole adventure. And he looks across at Dr. Sattler smiling, and he realizes that she sees that something's changed in him. Because now he likes kids. And now they can get married and have kids. And he's going to be a dad. And then he looks out the window, And there's some pelicans flying along next to the helicopter as they fly over the ocean. These pelicans are sailing. And seeing those pelicans flying along, pelicans are really neat birds. There's pelicans here in Utah, actually. Utah Lake is this enormous lake, and there's pelicans that live out there, and they are huge birds. And they're just majestic, and they're very beautiful. They have a long, long beak. You've probably seen them in Finding Nemo and stuff. Anyway, he's looking at these pelicans flying along and remembering all of those things about dinosaurs. And so as they flew away into the sunset in their helicopter, back to America where they'd be safe, where they could go home, take a shower, put on clean clothes, and take a nice rest. And finally, they were going home. And as the helicopter flew over into the sunset, away, what an adventure. How scary, how horrifying, but so happy that they made it through. And that, my friends, is the story of Jurassic Park. One of my favorite stories ever. It's a long one. I hope you enjoyed it. I know I have. It's fun to tell. Anyway, head to the library and get some books on dinosaurs. It's worth it. They're really good books. I love dinosaurs. Remember, this whole story is a story. That's what I love about stories, is you can experience things that didn't really happen, or things that did happen, but in this case, they didn't really happen. But what would happen if it did happen? And that's what the story is. So, this was Jurassic Park. Michael Crichton wrote the original book. Steven Spielberg turned it into one of the best movies, if not the best movie, okay? Without equivocation, for me, the best movie I've ever seen or experienced in my life, Jurassic Park, which it lit my imagination on fire as a kid and still does today. I hope you enjoyed this. I'm Ben Brooksby. Thanks for watching. This is the Great Amazing Book Show. How about some more smoke?
That was
Jurassic Park.
We do hope you've enjoyed this Great Amazing Book Show, and if you'd like to listen to further titles, please contact your local library. Or subscribe and continue to enjoy more of these fascinating stories.